Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Confessions of Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we're speaking with an athlete who has been competing since 2019 and won her pro card recently at NPC Universe in 2021. She is a family nurse practitioner located in North Carolina, and she has a very interesting story. So I'm excited for you guys to hear it. Welcome to the show, Allex Granger. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm awesome. So happy to be talking to you today. And before we get into everything, I'd love to know if there's anything you do or think about, or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Before I get on stage, I actually do the sign of the cross and take a deep breath and then just get on that stage. And before that, I actually, with my boyfriend, Vernon, if he's at the show, which he's been at all my shows except for my pro debut, even if he's not there, I call him, but we actually say a little prayer, just asking for like God's blessing while I'm on stage, and that, give me the courage and the grace to be up there, and that whatever is meant to happen as far as placings at that show, that it's in his hands.
Love that. Why wasn't he at your pro debut?
Because it was like, we decided like when the night that I turned pro actually. And so he was already scheduled to work, and he had already moved around so much to be at my shows that I was just like, it's okay. I wanted you to be there for when I could go pro. So it's okay if you're not there for this one.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think it's one of those things where you get in the groove of them coming, and then they've come to so many, and work can only let you take so much time off anyways. But I love that he's so supportive of you, and I definitely want to hear more about your guys' relationship and how that impacts you in bodybuilding. But I want to talk about how you got into bodybuilding in the first place. So back in high school, you had gained weight working at a fast food restaurant. You overheard classmates talking about how you'd gained weight, which led you to make some changes, and that had hurt your relationship with food and your body. So what changes did you make at the time that negatively impacted you? And then how did you get into bodybuilding and realize that you could be comfortable with all food and any food?
So kind of to go like back a little bit further before high school, is growing up, I was always small. I actually struggled with anxiety and would not eat because I was anxious and afraid of getting sick. And bless my mother for putting up with or like helping me through that. So when I started in high school at this job at this fast food restaurant, I'm like, oh, this is great. Like I can eat all this food. And of course it was all free. So that didn't help. So I had, burgers and ice cream and onion chips and all of that. And so I did put on weight. And I remember there were two people at my high school that said, oh, Alex got fat. And so I'm like, well, geez, I knew that I had gained weight, but I actually, now it's like other people are realizing too. So I would, like, for breakfast, I would have 100-calorie pack of almonds, and then I would have like a 70-calorie yogurt for lunch, and then eat what I wanted for dinner. And I ended up losing weight, in becoming more comfortable in my body. But then when I got to college, it kind of started this continuing that and kind of restricting and overeating. And so that right there kind of damaged the relationship that I had with food. And that went on for many, many years until I started learning about macros and tracking macros and realizing that, okay, I can eat these foods and fit them into my diet, but also in the same sense that like one day of overeating is not going to completely derail your progress. And the most important thing is just getting back on track and being consistent, because that was my mindset going through college, is like, I either have to be on or off this, healthy eating. And if I was off, screw it. But if I was on, I felt restricted. So that kind of played more into this feelings of restriction and then feeling bad about myself and guilt. So really when I started learning about macros is when it's like totally turned around, and it's counting macros has changed my life. It's not something that I want to do for forever. But I think that it's really taught me about food and the content of our food. And I think, like, as a nurse practitioner too, I see in my practice that people don't really understand what makes up their food. They don't understand, like, okay, they know what's healthy, right? But they think that that's salads or fruits, and they don't eat enough protein. They're probably overeating fats. They think carbs the enemy, but as we know, carbs aren't the enemy. So I think that it's just a really helpful tool to have to help people learn about nutrition. And I think everybody can benefit from tracking macros at some point in their life.
Definitely. And I just want everybody listening to know that you're walking outside. So if they're wondering why that there's noise, that's why. It's not too bad, Alex. I just wanted people to know. Also, branching off your idea of counting macros and this helping your relationship with food, I really want to highlight how you said that it helped you to understand the content of your food and what you're eating. I think that is highly underrated when it comes to counting macros. And a lot of times it's just like highlighted as, fitting in whatever you can, whenever you can, as much of it as you can. And then I also see the other end, which is trying to get as much volume in as possible all the time, which I also don't think is the greatest approach at all. So I'd love to hear how you've really found your groove with counting macros and maybe how you see it as a competitor.
So I really tried. So definitely my first prep, I was like, let me eat all the like macro friendly foods. Let me eat as much, volume as I can and find the best macros on everything. And this prep, I really tried to come from a standpoint of trying to be consistent with my macros. So I actually, for the past over 3 years, I've actually pretty much eaten the same breakfast every morning. And then this past prep, I ate the same lunch. So kind of made myself a meal plan, but flexible if like I forgot to meal prep one day, or if I wasn't feeling this, I switched something else in. But in this prep too, really trying to honor my hunger cues and cravings. Where in the past I would be like kind of, I don't want to eat this because it's too much fat, right? But really this time I'm like, okay, I want this now. Let me have it satisfy my craving, and then I'll just adjust whatever else I need to in the evening so that I'm still on track. Like if a coworker brought in, a little cookie or a brownie and I wanted one, having that and honoring that and not saying, okay, well, I'm going to save this for later. Because then I think that is where counting macros can become unhealthy, is trying to bunch your food or save all of your macros for later on in the day.
Definitely. Like, I think there's a big difference between budgeting macros and hoarding macros. And you're making that clear distinction when you decide, okay, I can make this work and I'm okay with adjusting things. And I think that's also a really important point, is when you are tracking macros, it seems like if you do make an adjustment, you have to accept what that adjustment's impact is going to be on the rest of your day from an energy, health, and overall frame of mind and focus standpoint. Like if you make a replacement or a swap for, let's say, donuts or cookies that got brought in for work, are you going to be able to focus the rest of the day, or are you going to be thinking about all the food that you no longer get to eat because you made a swap, And sometimes the opposite is true, where you make that swap and, oh, great, now I'm not thinking about the cookie all day and I can go about my work. And I think that's where it can be really positive too. So it's really all about execution, isn't it?
Yeah. And the way I like to describe it to people is it's like a budget, right? So if I give you a budget of $1,000 for a month and you really need toothpaste, think of that as like micronutrient, and you go and spend it on a Louis Vuitton purse that you don't need, that's, all these cookies and donuts and stuff, you're going to be hurting and you're not going to be functioning optimally without the bare necessities. So every once in a while, it's okay to spend that on things that you don't need or things that are overpriced, but it's important to mostly to stick to the, nutrient dense food and the essentials, essentially.
I haven't heard it explained like that. And I really like that. Like, not looking at it as a budget from the perspective of, okay, this much for meal 1, 2, 3, etc. But instead, like, sometimes you spend more and sometimes you spend less. I really like that viewpoint on it, because it puts it in perspective and takes it out of context when you bring it to like shopping, for example. So I think that it's good that you have this perspective on macro budgeting and how to do it the right way. And obviously, competing's help you to have a better relationship with food and your body image as well. How does macro counting approach, or maybe just your approach in general, change from prep to improvement season?
So in improvement season, of course, I'm less stringent as far as counting everything to the gram like I am in prep. I still track macros in my improvement season, but I also, working with my coach, get free meals or intuitive eating days, still trying to, focus on those hunger cues and focusing on protein. But really in my improvement season, I try and focus more on life, it's improvement season, but life season, and focusing on like getting stronger in the gym and hitting PRs, and stop looking at myself in the mirror and checking for abs every, 2 minutes of every mirror that I walk by, and trying to put the time and the effort that I put into prep into other areas of my life.
Yes, most definitely. I love how you said you don't just focus all on the physique, especially in improvement season. It's like the physique results that you're getting aren't so visible, and you still have to be okay with that, and it taking a long time to actually see the results again. Like, it could be a year, or in your case, like 2 years, because you went from 2019 to 2021 and you made so much progress. And you had talked in some of your posts about how you did have to get uncomfortable, but that it obviously paid off. And I think you made major improvements and put on a lot of muscle mass. So what did you learn from maybe being uncomfortable, or shifting focus from getting smaller and leaner to accepting that you had to grow and it would take some time?
I think that, like, looking back on what I thought was lean before I competed, like, that's not lean, right? Like, to everyday person it is, but to us competitors, it's not. In knowing like what I had to do and what I had to sacrifice, like the, eating out with friends, family, going to the gym and doing cardio instead of, doing XYZ, like, that's not, to someone who's not a competitor, that's not worth it. So I think that competing was helpful in the sense of me realizing, like, yes, well, you do want to be quote unquote skinny, what, Alex in college wanted to be, but you're giving up all these things. And I think that it's made me realize that, my everyday body, I may not be a competitor physique, which, I mean, I don't want to be. I think most people who are competitors, they're uncomfortable. Like, your sleep's not good, you're sitting, and you have pain because your butt is so bony, you're tired all the time. Like, that in itself is not worth it to live every day like that. So I think it's given me perspective of like what I want versus what I don't want. And then also like seeing myself go from those extremes, like really allowing myself to like, I'm trying to think of the word that what I'm trying to say, but like embrace every season that you're in. Like, yes, preps has its pros. I mean, we prep because we love it, right? We compete because we love it. And it's cool to see all those trends, but also on the other side, like being in your improvement season and being able to focus on other things, like hitting those PRs and going out with family and friends and not being so strict and giving yourself a break and realizing like what your body does for you. is really, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like what your body does for you, and honoring your body in every phase is really important. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that I had a girl reach out to me who was struggling about her clothes not fitting anymore and how it was hard in her improvement season. And your clothes aren't meant to fit you forever. Like you shouldn't be wearing the same clothes that you wore in high school, because you're not the same person that you were in high school. And it's okay, like just like how we have life seasons, the seasons have seasons, like it's okay for your clothes to have seasons too. If you have to buy a bigger size, then so be it, because you're not meant to stay in the same size clothes for forever.
I really love that sentiment because it's true. Like we put so much pressure on ourselves, I think, throughout our life to look or be or fit into certain things and be certain ways. But in reality, we should just embrace where we are and what is the goal now and what actions are we taking that satisfy that goal, which is something that I think you're emphasizing really well here. And I like how you said that there's different seasons for our clothing too. Like I know so many competitors have like prep drawers and like deep improvement season drawers. And I think that's good. And like you said, we shouldn't try to be who we once were. Like we shouldn't even try to be the last version of ourselves on prep, and people are like, oh, well, last time I stepped on stage, I was X amount of weight, so that's the weight I need to be again. It's like we really should focus less on that and more on how we're looking and feeling and performing.
I mean, if you think about it, and you're the same exact weight on stage that you are from season to season, that tells me one of two things: you didn't put on any muscle, or you didn't come in any leaner. So your stage weight should not be the same. And I mean, thinking of my season, like my weight on stage ranges by probably 3 or 4 pounds, depending on what look we're going for, essentially. So the scale, is honestly just a number. Like my season in 2019, my lowest prep weigh-in was 110, I think. And then this season it was 117 maybe. So like, obviously I looked a heck of a lot better this time and was 6+ pounds heavier. So that's not important.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I remember at USA's, I was so lean. Like I was small. I wasn't like muscular in this way that I need to be. And that was a big wake-up call for me. Like the scale was the lowest it had ever been, but I want next time to be much heavier, because if you can bring in the same conditioning or greater conditioning, or even less, but looking like you're more conditioned just because you have more muscle mass, it makes such a big difference. And that's clearly visible in your physique. And I hope that people maybe take the time to look at how you've progressed over the years, because it's really impressive. And I'm sure people will look at that and then wonder, well, how did you do it? So what do you attribute your muscle gain to?
So after I competed at Junior USA's in 2019, that was my first national show, and I got 3rd call outs. I ended up 13. And it was funny because I told Dylan, my coach, when I started with him, my goal is I want to go pro. And I remember the reason that I found Dylan was because I used to be, well, still am obsessed with Paige Riley, the IFBB Pro. But when she went pro and I was watching her, I saw Addison, one of Dylan's clients at the time, go pro, and she had gone pro in less than a year. And I said, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I want to be the person that goes pro in less than a year. And looking back, I laugh at that because I was so small and did not have the muscle to go pro. So I actually hired Bryce Calvin with Progressive Performance and continued to work with Dylan. And having someone do my programming for me was like the key to changing my physique. I tell Bryce all the time that he has changed my physique more in 2 years than I could have in 5 or 10 years.
Wow.
And then also continuing to work with Dylan and, focusing on pushing food, making sure I was eating enough to build that muscle was like the best combination ever.
That's awesome. Do they work together, or do you share like what you're doing from each of them?
Yeah. So they're like friends in real life, but Bryce and Bare Aesthetics and Progressive Performance actually have like an affiliation with each other. So they both recognize that we can't do it all. So Bare Aesthetics is like the nutrition component of it, and they refer training clients to Progressive Performance. And the same thing with Progressive Performance, they will refer people to Bare Aesthetics for the nutrition portion of it. And when I check in with Dylan, I actually CC Bryce on all the emails. So he knows what's going on as far as cardio going up, food dropping, how I'm feeling. And then I also check in with Bryce once a week and let him know, hey, my training's done. This is how this week went. So it's really great to have them work so close together. And also at the beginning of my prep too, before my first show, I kind of got on a phone call with both of them and made sure we were all on the same page, and kind of, I'm a planner, so I wanted to know what to expect as far as going into peak week and all that stuff. So it's been great working with both of them.
That's awesome. I love that you're able to do that. And I'm curious what types of variables you're tracking with your training coach and with Bryce and with Dylan.
So for training, the things that that he asks me about, like each day that I train, are like energy, strength, endurance, how good my pump was, my mind muscle connection, my focus, my preparedness, my injury, and my soreness. And I tell him right now that injury, I don't count my feet in my injury right now. And then, just kind of overall what I check in with him for the week, just letting him know again how training went, how I'm feeling, maybe updating him on life things. And then he sends a video back. And, anytime that I need modifications on something, especially right now, we are like, he's really good about doing that. And then with Dylan, the things that we track, of course, all the macros, fiber, sodium, water, cardio, sleep. And then when I'm checking in with him too, I'm letting him know what's going on with life. If I was really stressed, and I do make notations of that, like work was really stressful, okay, that's why my weight's up, or didn't sleep well, last night. So really trying to work on that biofeedback and taking the data and kind of putting them together and figuring out how my body responds. And that's the nice thing about working with a coach for so long, is Dylan and Bryce probably know my body better than I know myself. I've been working with Dylan for almost 3 years and Bryce a little over 2 years. And also sticking with one coach, I think, is really important too, and has helped with my success. I think that we always think the grass is greener on the other side. And I mean, sometimes it is, right? There are crappy coaches out there and people who have bad communication or really don't take pride in what they do. But I think that, it's important to stick with a coach so that they can learn your body, and so that you guys can figure out what's best and optimize on that to get you to where you want to be.
Definitely. Like you said, I think there are times when switching coaches or finding a new one is so important and beneficial, but also I agree with you that being with a coach for a long time and giving them enough chances or time, maybe chances isn't the right word, but giving them the opportunity to learn your body will make a big difference versus just always kind of switching and not letting anybody learn you and wondering why they don't know you or why they keep needing to test things. So I love that you have that maybe loyalty or commitment to them as well, and that you're really happy there. I think that's super cool. I think there's people who listen to this, and I haven't really talked about this on the podcast actually, because maybe to some it's very basic, but I think there's people out there who question if online training is going to be the right tool for them when it comes to competition prep, and maybe they prefer to be with a local competition team or coach, which is totally fine and cool as well. But what do you find to be the benefit, or maybe do you like, or do you find that it's beneficial to have an online coach as opposed to one that might be local?
So I'd say it's kind of hard to say like what I would prefer, just because I've never had an in-person coach. I think that like everybody's different as far as what they need, right? So some people need more hand holding. Other people are like, nope, I got it. Like I'll check in with you once a week and that's it. But I think the nice thing, at least with like my coaches, is that I know that if I need anything more, that I can hop on a phone call with them. We can hop on a FaceTime. I just need to communicate what I need from them. And really with, yeah, it'd be nice to have like an in-person trainer, right? Somebody like actually in the gym with you and screaming, but I've worked with Bryce for so long. I know what he's saying. And, I can hear him in my head saying, X, Y, Z. So I've never really worked with an in-person trainer, so I can't say that, but honestly, like he's so detailed in the way that he programs things, and he'll link videos, and I can send him form videos that like I have what I need. And with Dylan, I really don't feel like there would be anything different except for in-person check-ins like at the gym. But we do, I send a bunch of pictures and send videos too when I'm in prep. So I feel like I get what I need. But everybody's different.
Definitely. Like I've had both, but not for competition prep. Like I've had a trainer who helps me with mobility, or I've gone and had someone take me through a workout, or I've like met up with my coach and he's taken me through workouts in person, which is always great. But I find online training to be very effective as well. And especially if you are the type of person who can be really committed and ask questions when you need to, that helps, of course. But let's go back to your journey to becoming an IFBB pro and now having made your pro debut as well. And you did just talk about how you've had to have modifications made to your training. So I want to get into all of this. It's about where do we start? So I guess let's start with you getting a stress fracture on both your feet and how then your coach has modified your training, and what exactly happened to cause this injury, and how are you working through it given it's right in the beginning of your improvement season?
Yeah. So I tell Bryce that it's his fault that I broke my feet, because I was in between sets of RDLs, and I can hear him in my head, don't pick the weight up off the ground. Don't use your energy to pick the weight up that you could be using in your set. So I set it on a bench. Well, my dumbass, like I always do, set it like the long way, not up and down.
Yeah.
So I was standing next to the bench and the weights rolled off and fell directly on my feet. There were 65 pounds, and I'm pretty sure that one fell on each foot, but Jesus. I don't really know because I dropped it immediately to the ground and was like in excruciating pain, didn't know what the heck happened. So I ended up, kind of crawling out of the gym. And it was funny because I was on the phone with my boyfriend at the time on my headphones, and I had told him, man, I really don't want to be here. Like, I just want to go home. And well, I got to go home, but not in the way that I would have wished. No. So I regret that. I think I put it on myself. So I had planned on getting Chipotle after because it was leg day, and I was like, I'm hungry. I'm still going to get Chipotle. So yeah. I got Chipotle and I went to the urgent care.
Gotta get that Chipotle.
Yeah. I was like immediately bruised. And so they took x-rays, and she was like, I think that you broke your toe. Let's put you in a boot and have you follow up with ortho. Well, the radiologist didn't read it as a fracture, but because I was still so tender and sore and swollen, she said, let's have you see ortho anyways. And I was like, yes, please, because, I've seen where the radiologist doesn't read something as broken, but then ortho looks at it when they have context and they're able to, palpate you and such. And they do see that it was broken. So I followed up with ortho on my birthday, nonetheless. So I got myself a new pair of shoes for my birthday.
Oh my gosh.
She told me that my left big toe was broken in 2 spots, and I had the stress fractures of both feet. So I'm in some nice, at least they're black, post-op shoes for at least 4 weeks. So I go follow up next week, and then we'll see what she says. But yeah, so at first I still think it's really funny. It's a funny story to tell. But I mean, when she told me that, I was like kind of bummed, and I was like, damn, I was really just getting back into like lifting heavier. My strength was great. Like I was getting good pumps in the gym, and then this happened. But I always try to look on the bright side of things and look for the silver linings. And like, I mean, I could be both feet shattered like in hard cast, and I'm not. I'm still able to do some lower body things. Is it what I want to be doing? No, but it is what it is, and me being pissed off about it isn't going to make it any better.
Yeah. Oh, I totally understand that feeling of being so annoyed about a situation, but also wanting to acknowledge that it could be worse, but knowing it still sucks. And I can't even imagine the pain. Like I broke my pinky toe. This is nowhere near as horrible as what you went through. And it still bothers me. And I'm like, this is so annoying. It's been like weeks. But well, now when people listen to this episode, it's been months and hopefully it's not in pain anymore.
I hope I'm in normal shoes now.
Yeah. So I understand that feeling, and like doing the best you can is really all you can do. And knowing like, okay, it doesn't have to be a setback, but it is funny how you said you didn't want to go to the gym that day. I find that sometimes I've gotten punished for those thoughts. Like I'll get terrible cramps, or I'll have like just every machine is taken at the gym, or all the dumbbells are being used that I need. Like it always happens that way.
Yeah. So I wish I wouldn't have said
that. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you. And thanks. I know that you're doing the best you can to make this work. Let's go back to before you entered improvement season. You went from 2019 competing to then competing and winning the overall at the Pittsburgh Championships in 2020. Mm-hmm. That's something you intended to do. You wrote that goal down and you had shared it with other people in your life. And I was curious how you knew that those efforts you were putting in would get you to where you wanted to be with winning the overall. Like, what did you do each day to stay focused on that goal? And how did you know you would get there?
So I put on my countdown on a phone, like, X days until a like overall win at Pittsburgh. And I used the picture when I won my novice overall back in 2019 at the Clash. And I just had so much like fire in me seeing that, like when we started, even before we started prep, like the shape that I had was just like crazy in comparison to what I had before at my previous prep. And when we started like dieting down and really revealing that, I was like, man, it's like one of those things when you look at yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, that's me. Like I've pictured this for so long, and then, or like girls that you like look up to, and you're like, man, I wish my physique would look like them. Well, your physique's never going to look like them because you're not them. Right. But like seeing that shape and like seeing it finally come to fruition was just like, I've got this. Like I'm going to come back a completely different person. And I did. And I remember walking on stage at Pittsburgh, going out for my individual routine and like thinking in my head, like, I want to walk out there and Sandy see me and say, that's our overall winner right there. And I think it was that confidence that I had in the improvements that I made in my posing, and knowing that like the confidence that my coaches had in me, and that we took all of that time off. There's no way that I can't come back 10 times better than I was before.
I love that confidence right there. That's awesome. And knowing that you had no other option but to come back better because you had already invested that time and energy to doing so is really telling of how much you believe in yourself. And you ended up winning the overall. Now, what was the feedback you got that you then took with you to Junior USAs?
Well, the feedback was don't change a thing. Don't come in any leaner. Don't change a thing. So we didn't change anything. And then at Junior USA's, I was too lean. But really what we like figured out was that the lighting at Pittsburgh was terrible. And so I looked softer on stage than I was in person. So the judges probably thought that I came in leaner, but really we didn't. So I got second in my class, which was so much better than getting 13th the year before that. So we went to junior nationals and they told me, of course, to put on a little bit of body fat. So I ate and ate and ate and ate. My weight was kind of like staying stable or dropping. And there were days where actually I got refeeds of 600 grams of carbs because we were trying to put on that weight. And so we came in softer and I split center. And so I was so excited once again. And then and your runner up, Allex Granger. And so I got one spot away, for my pro card again. And my feedback was come in a little bit leaner. So it was kind of, just really back and forth. And so finally at Universe, the stars aligned, and my mom was able to be there, which was great. And so that was my show.
It's amazing. I love that. It's a good example of how the journey there isn't always as smooth or as simple as just following the feedback, because it's about finding like the exact look that you need to meet the feedback among the girls that you're standing next to. So you said that between those shows you had eaten a lot to fill out essentially, but then you needed to come in a little bit leaner. How did you know when you guys found your sweet spot?
I just listen to Dylan, do whatever he tells me to do. But really, I mean, of course, I was checking in with him like twice a week at some points. And the other thing too, is that because I've been working so long with Dylan and I know my body too, like I actually reached out to him before my check-ins at some point and was like, hey, I know we're trying to put on weight. Like my weight dropped again. And so I would send him pictures and he would like give me an early refeed or something like that. So really just trying to work with him on what I'm seeing as well and kind of work as a team. But I don't know. Both he and I thought every time this is the best look we've had. And then we just got better every time. And, we thought we had achieved that. So that's what's the fun thing about, bodybuilding and competing is that you think that was your best, but you can still improve on that. And it's kind of cool to go from like the NPC where, I just turned pro, like I have this great physique, and then going into this new big pond and you're this little fish and realizing that, man, I gotta, start down at the bottom again, and kind of the only the best is to come after that.
Yeah, exactly. So now that you feel like you're starting at the bottom again, or you get to do this, what are you guys focusing on? And maybe tell us about your pro debut as well.
Yeah, so my pro debut, I feel like it was like over in a minute. It was in Austin, Texas, at the Republic of Texas. So I had never been to Austin, which is cool. And it was nice going into a show without having any pressure. Like, honestly, I didn't feel like I was going into a show because I expected, to get last call outs, and I was totally fine with that because we were just going in to get feedback before going into improvement season. It's just nice how much calmer it is, like backstage as a pro, when they tell you like, okay, be down here at this time, like you're gonna go on at this time, and it's not like all of this hurry up and wait like it is in the NPC. So I felt really good up there. Of course, I was super nervous, and I think that because I had like low expectations and didn't have that pressure on myself, maybe I wasn't as myself as I normally would have been, like when I was trying for that pro card. So I feel like I wish that I would have not taken it a little more seriously, but maybe had a little not higher expectations, but like thought more of what I could get out of it, if that made sense. Like not expecting last call outs, but I got second to last call out, so that was great. But my feedback was to not grow anything but my glutes. So, which is kind of a bummer. It's not like I had to grow my shoulders and now my feet are broken and we can still do that. So
right.
Bryce is being creative and finding ways, and I'm still getting some good glute pumps, so that's okay. But so really I don't have to put on a ton of muscle, just some more upper glute and just some more density to the glute in general. So we're planning on taking this improvement season whenever we can get back to normal training and trying to do just that.
Do you have a timeline, or are you just kind of going with the flow until you get where you want to go?
So the goal is that we would take the rest of this year and most of next year off, and then plan to compete in October, November next year once the Olympia points are set. So the goal is Olympia 2023.
how do you feel about waiting to compete until that time? Like, does that feel good? Is that something you wanted to do, or is this longer than you expected, shorter than you expected?
So I am totally fine with that. Competing takes a lot out of a person, out of me. And you're missing out on a lot. Yeah, you can say that, oh, I still go out with my friends, but like, you don't really get the full experience, right? Like, you're not going out on all these date nights when you're in prep. You're, not doing things like you normally would because you're tired all the time. And this is my time to rest and recharge and focus on other things. And, there's the first pro show in North Carolina, like ever, I think, or at least in recent years. It's going to be in Charlotte next April. And before I turned pro, Dylan and I kind of looked at each other like, maybe we'll do that one because I live in North Carolina. But like, thinking that I would have to start prep in January for that, like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just ready to keep improving, get my food up, get everything back to homeostasis, and hopefully travel, because 2020 was the time when we were going to travel, when I was in my improvement season, and then COVID said no. So
I know, that's honestly such a bummer. I'm facing that too, where it's like my dad wants to go on a trip later this year, when I was planning on, not this year, I'm sorry, next year. So 2022, and I was planning on competing, and I'm like, oh, but I want to prioritize that. So I've kind of like personally released the timeline and been like, let's just go with whatever my coach says and see how it works with life. Because at the end of the day, like, it really does need to fit in with our life. And then when we commit to a prep, we have to really be committed to it, because it does take away is not the right word, but it does require a level of attention that maybe makes you give up attention on other areas for sure. So I think it's really cool that you're so comfortable with taking that time off. I love that you are doing that, because I know that can be really uncomfortable for other people. But I want to talk to you about how you got to your pro debut experience, because after you turned pro, you had shared that you felt like a failure and like you didn't deserve your pro card because your stress was so high. You didn't want to be in the gym. You had a lot going on mentally and emotionally. So because of, I'm assuming, cortisol, I believe that's what you had said in a post. So what'd you do to give yourself grace and change your focus from feeling down about yourself to feeling more positive and able to go for that pro debut?
So I don't know why, but like, after every show, like, no matter how well I do, I have like these post-show blues, like, where I like don't want to, like, the last thing I want to do is go to the gym, really. And I think that after I won my pro card, like, I was on such a high, but then going back to work, going back to reality, it's not like that I, oh, now I turned pro, I have nothing to like live for or look forward to anymore. It's just that, coupled with like the work was really stressful that week, and it's like all I wanted to do was go home and like sleep. And so I was like, man, I should be feeling this way, and want to train, want to get in the gym, want to get better, and I'm not. So like, do I even deserve like being a pro? Or do I deserve this pro card? And so of course I was freaking out, because I was hard on myself, and like always. And that just made it worse that my pro debut I was in peak week for my pro show, and I wanted to do my pro debut. I was excited about it. I think it's just that with everything going on, I was so overwhelmed and stressed that I just didn't want to deal with any of it. And so I talked to Dylan, talked to Bryce. They talked me off the ledge, and essentially Bryce was like, just go in there, do a couple exercises, like, really, you're just going in there to get your blood flow moving, get the carbs moving around. Like, we don't need to do anything crazy. And so I did that, and, did whatever I felt like doing in the gym, and just accepted that. And I think that, like, something that's not, I feel like on social media, there's this facade of like, oh, if you're not 100% about training, you don't eat, sleep, breathe training, competing, like, or, you're not a personal trainer and a coach, that like, you're not the real deal. And I don't think that that's true. Like, I think that we're all human, and like, nobody wants to train 100% of the time. And like, you're going to have days where you don't feel like training. And most of the time you push through those days. And, that's what we have to do competing. But there are some times where like, you have to realize that like, you're not a machine, you're not a robot, like things are going to break down, and you have to realize when, the wheels are spinning and they're going to spin off and out of control.
Mm.
And you need to just accept that and do what you can. And realize that you're not going to have perfect days. And like, even if you're on, you just started competing, you're on the brink of a pro card, you just won a pro show, like it's okay to have those feelings. And you're not any less of a person, you're not any less of a competitor.
That's so beautiful, honestly, that you just shed light on that, because that's mental health. Like if we don't look after ourselves in that way, or we're not willing to understand that we don't have to be machines to be successful at all. And I think we can be more successful long term if we prioritize our mental health and recognize that truth. I was having a conversation with a client of mine recently, and she was saying how she's never not focused on competing, and how she felt that pressure, right, to be like on it and always going and be like a machine. And we came to that conclusion that's similar to what you said about knowing when the wheels will fall off. And it's like, people will say like, oh, pressure makes diamonds, which is true, but too much pressure can break them. And I think people forget that part of being successful is being able to sustain it. It's not just arriving at some target and doing it and then being done. I think it's about enjoying it even when you're there. So I think it's amazing that you advocate for that, and you were able to recognize that for yourself. And that it's like a pattern after your shows to feel down, and you have the right people who know you and can help you push through when you need to. I do wonder though, because people feel like it has to consume their life to be successful. How do you find that it actually helps you to have other things that you're focused on, like your work or your relationship?
So I think that not being all consumed in that, and in competing and being a competitor and having a life outside of, competing, right? It's like when people put so much focus into competing and like, I got to win the show, I got to get this pro card. Then when you do it, what else do you have left outside of that? Like, yes, in prep, I maybe am not as social or hanging out with people as my friends as much as I normally would, but I still maintain those relationships. I still check in on my friends and, still nurture my relationship and have date nights with my boyfriend, even if, we're going out and I'm not, getting anything, or we have to go to a certain place because it's easier for me to track there, like still nourishing those relationships. And, your job, right, that helps pay to compete, or, jobs that you enjoy, like you still need to have those outside of competing, because when competing's over, what do you have left? You have all those things. And if you don't put the effort into that, then they're going to wither away. And I think that that's an important thing in competing, is like maintaining all those things. And, when I talked about like being so stressed and having the post show blues, and like, I don't want it to come off like that like competing stresses me the heck out, or I don't love competing. I absolutely love competing. But, we all know when you're that lean, your hormones are all over the place. Your cortisol is up just naturally. And so I think when you were talking about like diamonds under pressure, I think that there's a difference between like knowing like this is hard, I have to push through this, versus like this is hard and I'm at my breaking, on the edge, and I need to just chill out. I think that, competing, having this be my second season competing, I have like become in tune with my body of knowing, okay, I'm tired, I can push through, versus, okay, no, I need to take a step back.
Exactly. I just appreciate you saying that, because it shows that not everybody is gonna function as a machine, nor should they. And if we strive to do that, or like you said earlier, to look like someone else, to be like someone else, it takes away from our own journey and our own needs. So you recognize how important it is for you to focus on other areas of your life, specifically your relationships. So what do you do during prep? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I can't go out to eat with my friends. I can't go to the bars with them, or whatever it might be, those not so prep friendly, as people would say, activities. So how do you still stay connected or get yourself out there?
So I think that like COVID kind of helped in a sense, because everybody's not like,
Yeah.
well, traveling or trying to go around everywhere, plan, big trips or such. But I mean, even like something as simple as like going on a coffee date with a friend, or going out for a walk, or like my boyfriend and I would go ride bikes. We love doing that, like just spending that quality time together, like, in that it doesn't have to be around food, or like still going to family gatherings and, having your, bringing your food, or having your family. Like I just had my birthday celebration with my family a couple weeks ago, and they're like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "Well, you guys can get pizza if you want, or I could have had the pizza if I wanted to, but I could have fit it in, but I was like, or we can, grill some chicken up, and my brother's girlfriend brought a salad, and so just, if you are like around food, just trying to find ways to make it work or fit it in, or take a free meal if your coach allows it. But in FaceTime is also a really great thing, right?
Yeah.
Or texting, just checking in on your friends, and just seeing how they're doing. I think that like that effort, or showing that you're making an effort, goes a long way.
Absolutely.
And also I have very supportive friends and family too, that like know what I'm going through, and are texting me and is like, how's your prep going? How are things going? And they're very understanding of that. And my boyfriend is a saint, and he is very understanding of when I'm tired and I don't want to do anything, or I, need to leave because I need to go do XYZ. So I'm really appreciative of that.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Like you have to have people who understand you and understand what you're doing, so that they can be supportive. Because if you don't, and they're going to want to keep pressuring you to come out or do other things, or not accept your lifestyle, and are they really friends? And also, like you said, having the confidence to advocate for yourself, like, let's go on a walk, let's go get coffee, let's do FaceTime. There's so many ways to spend time with people that don't involve maybe food or high energy activities that can be really challenging to do at the end of a prep, So I think that's really cool that you're able to do that. Well, you mentioned earlier that your mom is a bodybuilding pro, and when you were younger, you struggled with anxiety. I want to know maybe more about just your mom's background and how that influenced you growing up, and where you are now as a pro yourself. Like, did seeing her pursue that goal when she had you as a kid and your siblings, or seeing her in an older age than you are now, inspire you? Did it change your outlook on health? Like, give me the rundown.
So I don't even know how my mom got into competing, but she did. So she competed in the NGA, which is the Natural Gym Association, which is the all natural federation. They polygraph you, before you compete. And so she competed in women's bodybuilding, which the physique that she had is probably comparable to like women's physique of what we have in the NPC and the IFBB. And so I was young. I mean, I was probably like around 5 or so I don't really remember a ton of it. But what I do remember is her, posing like in the bedroom she did like Pour Some Sugar on Me was one of her songs.
Love
and like
that.
Evanescence, one of Evanescence song was another one of her songs. And I have a picture of me like in the Winnie the Pooh like sports bra, like pretending to flex. And like my dad painting her in the living room with tan with the sheets down. And so when she came to my 11th birthday, she Universe where I went pro, she was actually helping me with my tan. So it was kind of cool to see that, total like 360 of her and I. And so I, from a really young age, wanted to compete. And so, when she won her pro card, she had 4 kids. So I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like she can do that and look like that. Like after having 4 kids, like I want to do that someday. When I got into competing, I kind of expected that I was going to do it later in life just because my mom did. But, I got it in, or I started it. I mean, I'm glad that I started competing now, but it's funny talking to her about, because back then, like there weren't really coaches. Like I don't even know who like coached her or whatnot, and there weren't macros either. And so when she was prepping for a show, she's just like, oh yeah, I just had 1 cup of oatmeal instead of 2. And she would run sprints like up a hill near our elementary school that was really steep. And my dad would be going up the van with the van next to her, like, cheering her on. And so it's just funny how much things have changed. And like how when I try and explain to her stuff now, like she doesn't totally understand what we do nowadays compared to what she did back then.
That's something I was really curious about, because was she kind of like old school bodybuilding mentality, and that's different now when you talk about macros, for example?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like, I mean, she competed back in, my sister was born in 1998. I think she competed back in like 2000 or 2001. And so, I mean, I'm sure macros were out there, but they weren't like a wide known thing. And so she was eating like chicken and egg whites with salsa on them, just very like basic foods. So, I mean, I don't really know. She just kind of started pulling stuff out so she could get leaner. And then, I mean, it was pretty amazing what conditioning she got to, considering she didn't really know what she was doing or didn't have like a structured plan.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think it's cool that she inspired you. Did you ever feel like how she ate or how she pursued this goal negatively impacted your life growing up?
I don't think so. I don't ever feel like she, like, I mean, I feel like I ate like a normal kid, and she served like normal meals that moms would serve. Like we have, my sister will laugh if she listens to this, macaroni and milk, which is literally just like macaroni with like milk and salt on it. Like that was our dinner sometimes.
Wait, milk, like it was almost like cereal?
Yeah, kind of.
That's hilarious.
It's good. Don't knock it till you try it, with some butter and some garlic salt. It's good. But yeah, I mean, and I would have like, for breakfast, I would eat like pizza or ramen or something like that. So, no, I mean, I felt like I lived a normal childhood, and she never like portrayed like food any which way to me, which I'm thankful for that, because I feel like having a mom as a competitor, a bodybuilder, like I could have had a negative connotation with food or body image, but she didn't portray that at all.
That's so cool. I think it's one of those things that maybe we just think in our head would happen, because I've talked to women who feel like they can't compete and be a mom because of those concerns. And I always think and say, if you have a healthy relationship with food and you focus on prioritizing the relationship you have with your body as well and with this sport, you'll likely do just fine, managing both. And portraying that. So I think it's really cool that you had that experience, and you can see those similarities and differences in the approach. Do you guys ever train together?
So sometimes, yeah. So actually it was funny when we were down in Charleston for Universe, we went to the gym the day before the show so that I could work out with my team. And my mom still does work out or lift. And I said to Dylan, I said, oh, Dylan, like, my mom's over there, try to introduce them. And he was like, that's your mom? He was like, I was just looking at her, thinking, man, this lady's badass. So she still gets compliments every once in a while, but it's funny because now I can like take her through workouts, where before in, high school, she would show me how to lift. So it's cool to share that like bond and, kind of give back to her in the sense of all those years that she gave to me. It's like, hey mom, let's do it this way, or, let's do this new exercise. So it's fun. I wish we worked out more than we do, but we used to.
Oh, I love that. I think that is so special. And she got to see you turn pro, which is just a beautiful, maybe commemoration of the impact that she had and is having on your life still. So I appreciate you, telling us about your relationship with her and how that influenced your life as well. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about or we didn't talk about that you really wanted to share or discuss?
Gosh, well, I guess maybe the only thing, maybe two things. Mm-hmm. One is going back to like your relationship with your body and appreciating yourself in all stages and thinking of when you're reversing. Like when you're prepping down, let's say, you hit 130 and you haven't hit it for a while and you're like, dang, I look so good, right? And then you get down to stage weight and you're reversing back out and you get back to that 130 and maybe you're not feeling so great about yourself. That's the same 130 that you were when you were prepping and you thought you looked great. So I think that like remembering that when you're not feeling like most comfortable in your body is that, it's the same quote unquote weight. So we talked about that this, the scale doesn't really matter, but just honoring that and, realizing that, one day you can think you look great and the next day you could be uncomfortable in your body and that's okay. And the other thing would be like when I, not letting people or placings like take away from how you feel about your physique. Like I know where there's been times where like something has come up and I'm questioning something and I talk to my coach and they're like, well, before, you heard this or so-and-so said that, like, how did you feel about your physique? And I'm like, well, I felt great. Okay. Well, don't let what they say impact how you feel. And I think that, when I was going through being away from my pro card two shows in a row, like trying to look for that silver lining and everything. Like when I didn't go pro at junior USAs, I thought, okay, junior Nats, this stage is really cool. Like I get to compete at the stage. This is, a much better stage to go pro at. These pictures are going to be great. And then I didn't go pro there and then found out that my mom was able to come to Universe where I did go pro. And that made that much more special. And like knowing that things are going to happen when they're meant to happen and everything happens for a reason. And I think that losing with grace is also important. And like realizing that, again, just because somebody, beat you or you didn't place as well as you want to, like think about how you felt before you stepped on that stage about your physique and like bashing somebody else or thinking bad about, somebody else or nitpicking things and saying, well, XYZ should have won or should have done better. Like that's not going to change anything. And it's only going to make you feel worse. So, or just go back to what you felt before so-and-so said something or you placed this way and remember how you felt. And how proud you were.
I love that. I'm so glad that you brought that up too, because sometimes we get in our heads about what other people say or have said before really considering how we feel and what our experiences are in our own progress, and not focusing on criticizing other people as well, because that will likely make it easier too to criticize ourselves. And that's not a place for growth at all. So that advice is amazing, but I'd love to hear if you have any other advice specifically for someone who's never competed before, and then advice for someone who's on their road to pro.
Someone who's never competed for, know your why. I'm a big believer in that you shouldn't just compete because you want to, lose weight or, have a better physique, whatever it may be. I think that it's important to, establish your love for lifting, your love for the gym. And then if it takes you into competing, great. And the other thing would be like, do your research, find a good coach, ask other competitors who have that coach, like how their experience is with them. I think that will tell you a lot, because competitors who have a good experience are going to tell you. Competitors who have a really bad experience are going to tell you. So if there's any question, reach out to a competitor of a coach that you're thinking of hiring, and trying to, again, like I said, stick with that coach and, give them the time and to learn your body, but also be communicative about what you want, what you need, what your expectations are. And then two, before you hire a coach, jump on a phone call, ask to jump on a phone call with them and make sure they're the right fit. You're, investing a lot of time, money, energy into this coach. And I think there's nothing wrong with asking a coach to jump on a call. And then, people who are on their road to pro, don't give up. You can be so close, and you're finally there. And then when you're there, like your journey is over, right? So enjoy that road and take time off stage, because if I didn't take the time off, I wouldn't have turned pro. You can't get better in staying stage lean, and if you do, it's not that much. So it's more fun to come take the time off and come back with a completely different package than it is to keep trying year after year after year and making not huge improvements.
So true. Beautiful advice. I mean, this whole episode has been full of many amazing insights from your experiences, and I want everybody to be able to connect with you and follow your journey. So can you let them know how they can do that?
Yeah, so on my Instagram, it's at Allex, Allex, Nicole, _ IFBB Pro. I try and be pretty active on there. Some days are better than others. But if you have any questions about Toxic Angel suits or pancakes, I'm an affiliate with both of them, and my code is AGFIT. I'm happy to answer any questions about that, or if anybody has any questions about competing in general or needs help with posing coaching, I actually recently started offering that too. So I am there.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, I hope that people take you up on that and reach out about it. Your posing, by the way, was so beautiful. I mean, like you are a beautiful poser. You look so great on stage and so composed. So I think it would be awesome for people to learn more from you through your posing sessions as well. So thanks for mentioning that and how people can find you and the different discounts that you have with the companies you love. And
yes.
Before we go, I want everyone to know I'm going to put that information in the show notes page. You guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, Alex's episode will be at the very top. If you're listening in the future, just scroll down to the category section. You'll find her name there. It's in alphabetical order. And you'll be able to read all the show notes, click on the links that we have mentioned, as well as see timestamps. So you can always go back to different parts of the episode that you really enjoyed and listen again. So thank you guys for tuning in. And Alex, thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your experiences.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode.